All right, we're going to go ahead and get started, and then I'm sure we'll have more join us. First of all, I'd like to again welcome you. I'm Keith Lewis, Superintendent, Douglas County School District. Before we get started tonight, I'd like to introduce my team. We have Executive Director of Ed Services, Rami Cronin-Mack. We have also in Ed Services, Assistant Director of District Services, Shannon Brown. We're joined tonight by Executive Director of Human Resources, Joe Girdner. Our Executive Director of Grants, Assessment, and Progress Monitoring, Brian Frazier, and our Assistant Director of Special Service or Inclusive Education, Wendy Yankowski, and we will also be joined a little bit later by our Executive Director of Inclusive Education. I mean, that was perfectly timed. Jeannie Dwyer, you came on right as we did that, so nice work. And also behind the scenes is our Director of Information Technology, Jan13, who is making sure all the technology works this evening. The purpose of the town halls is just to provide an opportunity to ask questions of either myself or my team. There are certainly questions that some in the room are a lot more qualified to answer than maybe even I am. And so as a team, we should have the ability to answer questions. And if we don't, we will certainly find answers and get those to you. What has worked well in the past is to type any questions you have in the chat room. And Mr. Girdner is going to be our MC tonight, and he will monitor that. And then he will read out the questions. And again, we have an hour and a half allocated tonight. We'll see if we get that far. But again, we'll open it up the floor to you. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat room and we'll get started.
Good evening, everyone. The first question is, will you reinstate the mask mandate considering the increase in COVID cases?
So thank you for the question. At this time, the way that language works is if there is an outbreak at a school, then the health department would require us to wear masks at that point. And so we do have a couple schools that we have forwarded data to the state epidemiologists. Both of those actually are at the lake right now. We've seen a little bit of an increase up there, obviously, and we're still waiting word back from the state. But at this time, we don't anticipate changes in the guidance. We obviously, as we came out of the Christmas break, we anticipated that we would see a rise similar to what we saw coming into the fall, and that has been true. But as these things, they've been very cyclical, and again, we have tonight, I think, 142 active cases across the district amongst 5,300 students, which is around about a 2.5% case rate right now. And obviously, we talk all the time with our site administrators, and right now, while the cases are higher than they have been, we still feel like we're able to manage it well and provide choices for our students.
All right, the next question is, with other area schools closing, is this something DCSD is discussing?
So again, I think, it's a day by day, but the Carson, I think the biggest concern for all of us across the state is really the staffing. And I don't mean that we're not concerned about our students, but in terms of why school districts are having to close, it's falling more along the lines of the staffing. And that's what happened in Carson City, is they didn't have the staffing to be able to effectively keep their schools open. All of us are in a situation where the subs have not been as readily available. And so that limits the wiggle room that we have. But at this time, we do not have plans to close as long as we have the staff to operate and that we are able to manage cases across the district.
All right, the next question is, can we take a child out of school for a week or two to allow time for them to get a booster and it to take effect and give them protection? What remote learning is allowed in this situation?
Joe, will you repeat that question?
Sure. So can we take a child out of school for a week or two to allow time for them to get a booster and it to take effect and give them protection? What would be the remote learning in a situation like that?
So again, I mean, a parent can do what they want to do with their child. I mean, obviously there are attendance policies in place. And so that is something that we would obviously encourage our parents to keep in mind. Right now, in terms of 4th through 12th grade, our 2 learning opportunities are in-person instruction or DNO. I will ask Rami to weigh in on DNO, whether it's, we still may be able to get a student into DNO since we're pretty early into the semester, but remote learning would not be provided. We do have a handful of cases in kindergarten through 3rd grade where DNO is not an option here in the district for students to get remote learning when they have a verified medical reason to do so.
And just to add, Superintendent Lewis, Douglas Nevada Online would still be accepting students. This semester is a little bit shorter in terms of length, and so there's still time for students to enroll to be able to get through the curriculum for the end of the school year.
The next question is kind of a follow-up from the first question, and it is, why not be proactive and reinstitute masking to prevent further infection?
Well, again, I think that our plan follows the CDC guidance, and it's highly recommended. And certainly parents have the opportunity to require that their kids wear masks. They're not required by the state. And as a district, we have followed that mandate. And again, watching our numbers, we're 2.5% of our population. And again, while cases are increasing, we saw this in the fall as well when we came back from summer. And at this point, the state epidemiologists have not determined that any of our schools are in an outbreak, and that's what would trigger mandatory mask as part of our safe return to in-person instruction plan.
All right, the next question is, considering the rapid increase in cases at the lake, why did you not notify all families at Zephyr Cove Elementary School and Wattell High School when the decision was made to close at Zephyr Cove?
Well, we don't typically notify all schools. So if we took that scenario in the valley, if we were forced to close a school like Gardnerville Elementary School, we would not have notified Carson Valley Middle School or Douglas High School. We notified the school that it pertained to. The situation at Wattell, when we closed Zephyr Cove, the situation was not such that it required us to close. The situation at Wattell was that we tested for athletics on Wednesday, and we had several asymptomatic students who tested positive. Because they were on sports team, that required us to then quarantine the rest of the team, which put about 37% of the student population out. And that's why we made the decision to close Wattell today. But certainly Thursday morning, prior to coming to school, the situation was not such that Wattell needed to close.
Okay, the next question is, we've heard Washoe is shutting down sports for this month. Is that something being discussed? Hopefully the answer is no.
So the answer is no. So major evening. I have not heard that about Washoe. So that would be news to us. Sometimes we are not the first to ever know. So I would not be totally surprised. Obviously, Carson shut down due to the staffing, and as a result of that, the games between Carson and Douglas, I think we're scheduled for tomorrow night, have been canceled. So I think it's a day by day, and obviously, we won't be able to control Washoe's decision, and certainly for Douglas, that would have a major impact on us, since the majority of the teams that we do compete against are obviously from Washoe County. So we hope that's not true.
The policy posted online defines an outbreak. The policy posted online defines an outbreak for mask mandate as more than one classroom, not a percentage. I believe this is beyond one classroom.
I actually appreciate somebody pointing that out, because that did change to a percentage and we need to update our plan. Once again, an outbreak is always going to be determined by the state epidemiologists. And so I don't make that decision as the superintendent. When we have cases, we forward that. When we have areas of concern, we forward that data to the experts in the health field, and we request that they look at that data and then make a determination. And so again, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into what they're looking at. They're looking at, you know, is there a known source? In a lot of the cases, you know, there may be a known source where a parent had it first, or a sibling, and there's not a direct connection necessarily within the same school. And so again, our health experts, we're in constant contact with them. And again, I think the past 22 months have shown that relationship and that constant communication has done very well to keep our schools open in Douglas County.
All right, the next question is, the active cases have doubled in the district since Monday. This is a much steeper rise than anything that occurred during the fall. Doesn't this call for different measures, not the same measures, e.g. optional masking, which equates to a handful of students actually wearing masks?
So once again, I've answered this question several times. We do not have plans at this point to mandate masks. And I would disagree that we didn't see a significant rise very early in the fall.
I think you've answered this question already, Keith, but by yesterday, our son went to Wattell High School and only one of his 6 teachers was in class. Today, we heard half of the 11th grade classes tested positive for COVID. Do you still not consider this a major outbreak?
Well, I don't know who the teachers are, but I can tell you that we had several teachers out as ski coaches. So there's a variety of factors of why teachers are out, and that doesn't mean that every teacher that's out has COVID. I have not heard that half of the 11th grade has COVID positive. So we had one new case reported. As far as what's been reported to Wattell, is we have 23 positive cases total at this point.
South Tahoe High School is providing home COVID tests and encouraging all students to be tested before returning to school on Tuesday. Why is DCSD not doing the same?
We will test any student that comes back if they have symptoms. We have the capacity to test, and they can reach out to the school to arrange for those tests. We have tested lots of students across the district this year. Our school nurses have been very busy, and we have been very proactive in testing.
All right, a new topic. What is a typical?
Joe, the other thing I'd like to add is not every parent wants their kids tested. So I think that is another factor. And I think the other factor too is not every parent wants their kids to wear masks. And so I think that's the issue that we get to figure out as a district, is that not everyone's in agreement. And that's why we have been steadfast of following the guidance that has come out by the state. And once again, I'm very proud that over the past 22 months, we've kept our kids in school while minimizing risk to them.
All right, new topic. What is the typical allotment for speech language pathologists in elementary schools that have pre-K through 5th grade, including pre-K special education? It would seem that one SLP would not be sufficient to address multiple IEPs in that setting. Jeannie, are you able to unmic?
We can't hear you, Jeannie.
There you are.
I'm unmuted. Am I there? Can you hear me? Okay. So the caseload numbers, best practices, and the caseload numbers that we follow is a max of 50 students per speech pathologist. So all of our elementary schools have one speech pathologist. We have one elementary school that our speech pathologist has multiple programs and is only part-time and helps out. But other than that, all of the preschools, or I'm sorry, elementary schools across our district have one speech pathologist. And again, that number is 50. That's typically what we follow. We try not to go any higher than that. Our speech pathologists work with students directly, and they also consult. So the services look different for all of the students.
So the next question is, the tests are only for those that have not been vaccinated, correct? That is not correct. Any student, vaccinated or unvaccinated, can sign up to be tested and reach out to your school for that information. Comment here, absolutely. Thank you for not mandating masks. We do not want masks. We do not want testing.
So Joe, I do want to follow up on that and what you just said. It's just so that everyone is aware that we do have an opt-in program for testing. So we are required to test any students and adults that are leaving Douglas County to go participate. So typically that is our athletics, but we do have the capacity for any adult or student to opt into weekly testing. So that is an option. I want to just make sure everyone's aware of that.
So question is, I would like to ask a question about the Open Gate weapons detection system. How much research has been, how much research has been done in regards to long-term effects on the use of the system on a regular basis to people, students? Is it radiation, sonar, etc.?
Actually, that is a good question that just came up, and that is not a question I have the answer to today, but we are meeting with our vendors next week. I've thrown it out to them to find out. And so I will get that question answered and try and get it back out to you.
Next question, what is the frequency of testing for students whose parents are allowing testing? Weekly, monthly? Is there no discernible, there has been no discernible frequency at my student's school for non-athletes. So opt-in right now is set up once a week for non-athletes. That's something that you work through the nurse's office. For your child that you would like to opt in, again, it's weekly, and you work through the nurse's office to set up that weekly testing cycle.
Joe, and to follow up on that, and I don't know if this question, if you've opted your child into testing and you're concerned that they're not being tested weekly, if that is the case, then please reach out to us and let us know what school that is at, and we can follow up on that.
Athletes don't get tested if they have the vaccine. Has that changed? That has not changed unless they have symptoms. They are not required to test if they're vaccinated unless they're symptomatic. Question is, what is the school calendar for next year?
Those are now posted up on the website. So,
and just to follow up on that, so the calendars are aligned between Lake and Valley. So we will have a start date of August 22nd in the, I almost said in the Valley, all over the school district. And then a June 16th end date The breaks will remain the same. So the October break around Nevada Day. We'll have a 2-week Christmas break. We have the week around President's Day in February. And then I believe, if my counting was right, spring break is 7 weeks after that February break. So that is the calendar moving forward for next year. And as Brian said, those are updated, and I will be sending the draft calendars out to families. I meant to do that today. So this question is a little bit of a reminder of something I didn't get done on my to-do list.
Are the results of this survey going to be published that were sent to parents regarding the calendar?
So those were, we can put those up on the website. We did talk about the survey results at the board meeting. And so prior to the December board meeting, we conducted that survey, and then that data was presented at the December board meeting prior to the board making a decision. So it was, there were 3 options. It was a little bit interesting. So the option obviously that we went with was the clear favorite in a ranked order. It was interesting. There was some interest in the Thanksgiving, but people either loved it or they hated it. There weren't a whole lot of people that selected that as their option number 2. So we can get it posted. You can also go into the December, if you go onto our website under the board meetings and the December agenda, that data is attached to that agenda. Or you could always reach out to me by email, and I would be more than willing to share that as well.
California has mandated COVID-19 vaccinations for children to attend school in person. Will this affect our schools?
So at this time, we have not had any discussion. The only comment that's been even made at the state level is that it would not be required of students as long as it was under an emergency use authorization. And so in terms of vaccinations, obviously there's been some talk in regards to staff and adults. It looks like the Supreme Court put a pause on that, and then we're waiting to see what that means. That pause was more for private employers. We're obviously a public employer, but at this point, the state of Nevada had indicated they're not moving forward with mandatory vaccinations for the adults. But we do have a meeting with the governor's office on Friday, and hopefully we'll have some more information on that. But again, going back to your question of students, that has not been a discussion. So I certainly wouldn't sit here and, guarantee it, but I would also tell you openly if those discussions were happening behind the scenes, and at this point they're not.
What is the maximum in-person student to teacher ratio at the secondary schools you will allow during this outbreak before you will have a shift to remote learning? Want me to read
I'm not sure I really understand the question. So obviously our goal is to remain in person. Any of us that were involved in virtual learning, which I would imagine most of us on this town hall meeting know how hard virtual learning is. That doesn't mean that, we're going to risk the safety of our students and staff. But again, I think that looking at, Whittel, we closed at 37%. That's obviously a high percentage. It makes it really hard, but we just closed for a day, and it's our intent that we will reopen on Tuesday. So, there's not a definitive number. There's not a definitive percentage. Again, I think there's a lot of factors that we have to look at. And again, right now we're able to keep our schools staffed. But that's if I have a major worry that keeps me up at night, it is our staff and the availability of them. So I don't know that I really answered your question specifically. I'm not trying to be evasive on it. So I apologize if I didn't answer that.
So consider, well, first of all, Brian pointed out that calendar survey data is attached to the December 14th Board of Trustees agenda. It's agenda item 13, and you can get that on our website. The next question is, with the sharp increase of COVID cases at the lake, are there any additional steps that are being taken before Tuesday to ensure the schools are safe?
Our custodial staff over Christmas break reinstalled the biotech. That's it's what we put on the surfaces at all of our schools that kills on contact. So that was reapplied over the Christmas break. We have gone in today and we'll continue to do so tomorrow. We have fogged the building with even more to ensure that we have thoroughly cleaned it. And then obviously as part of the new guidance, those students that are coming back, if they come back in days 6 through 10, will be required to wear a mask. That is part of the new guidance. So they can come back after 5 days, but days 6 through 10, they would be required to wear a mask.
All right, a facilities question. What is being done to address the infrastructure issues at our schools, such as ventilation and roof leaks?
So twofold. We just finished CC Manili, a complete restructure of our HVAC system there. We finished half of Jacks Valley, and this summer we will, one of our big capital improvement projects is going to be to replace the other portion of that. We have purchased air scrubbers for our buildings for each one of our sites through ESSER funding. So that will help with ventilation and air quality. That's really important, especially at the lake and all of our schools that we've experienced the smoke that we've experienced in our past few falls. At Douglas High School, we are also going to be replacing, I believe it's up to 50 air conditioning units at Douglas High School. And so we are working away on that. And that is we have very limited capital improvement funding. And so you could probably give us a couple $2 billion and there would probably still be projects, but we are definitely working on that with ventilation as one of our focuses as well. And then on roof leaks, so two of our schools that have had probably the most major leaks have been CC Manili and Jacks Valley. We've also had some pretty significant leaking at Douglas High School. The roofs, when they were put in well before my time, came with a warranty. And so over the course of many years of trying to patch it unsuccessfully, our new director of facilities, Phil Demas, was able to meet with the company, and they are paying for complete recovering of those schools. And so Jacks Valley has been done. And a major portion of Douglas High School, it's more on the 100, 200 buildings. Those are the oldest buildings there at Douglas High School. They're working on those. Obviously during the winter, they've had to take a pause, but they got quite a bit of the work done in the fall. And then CC Manili, that work has begun as well, and will hopefully be finished through the spring. So roof leaks can be very hard. The other thing is at Scarcelli, one of our projects this upcoming summer is to recoat the ceiling at Scarcelli, which will it will obviously help with leaks, but it also will extend the life of that roof there as well. So we did have a company come in and conduct a complete analysis of all the roofs in DCSD, and then we prioritize projects moving forward. So quite a bit's getting done in those areas, I believe.
So the question was answered. When is graduation for Douglas High School? And the answer to that is June 3rd at this time. That's the scheduled date is June 3rd. Next question is, how do we start?
Joe, I have on Douglas high school's website says Thursday, June 2nd, 5:30 p.m.
Thank you, sir. Next question, how do we start the process to get a sidewalk in front of Pinyon Hills Elementary? It seems like a serious safety issue to not have any sidewalks there. Multiple children walk and bike to school, and there is no safe place to walk, bike right by the school, and lots of cars are present during pickup and drop off.
Rami, do you have any information historically as the former principal at Pinyon?
Well, it's like many of the other neighborhoods. I think the one around C.C. Manili, many of the areas in the ranches are the same. It's more of a county question than it is a school district question. I mean, we only impact our property up to a certain point. So, you know, putting in a sidewalk around the school itself really doesn't solve the bigger issue of the kids who are trying to walk to school or ride their bikes out there in that area. But there aren't sidewalks generally in that area where the school is. And so that's a county concern. You know, the bigger question is probably one to go to Mr. Demas, our facilities person, and we'd probably have to investigate, like, how far out does our property line go? But, you know, we don't own that road that goes in front of it where we have the flashers. And so that's always been a question out there, or a concern, because there just aren't sidewalks in that area.
And you know, it is very challenging. I was the former principal at Powaloo, and you know, for many years we tried to get a crosswalk. If you're familiar with Powaloo at all, where the bus lane exits is where a lot of kids also exit the school, and there are a lot of regulations around getting things on our local roads. So again, that's something, if you can reach out, we can try to get an answer on that, but it would obviously begin with the county.
Okay, concerning course offerings at the high schools, there are very few options for in-person electives at Whittle High School, the limited number of teachers, and reports are that DHS does not have enough classes to meet the demands of the students. Why hasn't the online course catalog of Edgenuity been expanded to provide students more options?
Honestly, because nobody's asked. So I've been working with administrators at the lake for a long time. And as the requests have come through, we've done what we can to expand those offerings. We have greatly expanded the offerings through the use of Edgenuity, and with the need for more options. If there was an interest and enough requests, we would have worked really hard to make that happen. With regards to Douglas High School, I can't really speak directly to that. Superintendent Lewis, can you speak to any issues they're having with electives there?
I have not heard that. That is news to me.
So the next question is another facilities question. What are the air scrubbers, and do the ones installed in the district meet the standard for COVID mitigation, not just smoke related air quality? Does each building in use at every school have these now?
Hey, Brian, can you answer this better than I can?
I can answer, I think, some of it. They were actually purchased for the COVID concerns, not necessarily for the smoke concerns. So we actually utilized resources that are directly related to that. I'm not familiar with the background. Again, that might be something that Phil can help us with, because he did the research on that. The second part of that was, where are they in the district? Yes, they are at each school in the district.
You're muted, Keith.
So sorry about that. So there's different types of air scrubbers, and we're looking also at, there are air scrubbers that you attach directly to your HVAC system. The ones that we have purchased, we have an air scrubber for every other classroom. They are able to handle the air not just in the classroom around them when with the ducting and so forth, but they basically take in the air and remove the air pollution, surface contaminants, any dander, odors, and dust, and then obviously puts out a cleaner, healthier air in the classroom. So that's a synopsis of it. If you want more details of specs and so forth, we can provide that. You reach out to us and we can put you in touch with our facilities supervisors.
All right, can you please explain the procedure for hand washing, sanitizing before lunch at the elementary schools? Has anything new been implemented since COVID, e.g. a community hand washing basin?
Shannon, do you want to answer this as the former elementary principal, what you did at GES?
Yeah, so the procedure was to, for classrooms that had sinks or wash basins in them, teachers would have their students wash their hands prior to heading to lunch, or at least at Gardnerville Elementary, there were bathrooms right as you entered the cafeteria, where classrooms that didn't have sinks, students could stop and wash their hands on their way into lunch. And, you know, you can encourage them, but you can't follow them in the bathroom to make sure they're washing their hands. Hand sanitizer was everywhere. Most kids would hit the hand sanitizer right after telling the cashier what they wanted for lunch, right prior to picking up their food. So hand sanitizer was everywhere, every room, hallways, cafeteria, and actually there were stations that were pushed outdoors so that multiple kids could sanitize their hands on carts on their way in from recess after every recess. So hopefully that covers it.
So the next question is, what is going on with the weapon detectors that, and I'm not sure I understand the last part, but it says that will be places at DHS. I think they're asking where will we use the weapon detector?
So currently, there are 2 portable stations that can be used anywhere, any building or event in the district. Our plan is not to roll them out regularly and use like every single day until we have been able to get the public well informed. They are passed through. Students don't have to stop and empty their backpacks. They're a technology that is strictly designed to pick up weapons or that would cause a mass casualty event. For instance, kids can walk through with their water bottles. They're not going to go off. They're not looking, it's not going to detect if prohibited items like vape pens or things like that, because that's not what we got them for. It was an opportunity through a grant program to add another layer of safety. It wasn't a specific threat that generated this. And so we are the first program in the state of Nevada, and they're hoping to spread it throughout all schools or all districts in Nevada. So it'll start with 2 stations and that they can be set up basically at any event. Hopefully that answers your question.
So I'm not sure what this question relates to, but it said, did he say every other classroom? What is the rationale for every other classroom?
I think the conversation or the questions about the air scrubbers.
So we do have one for every other. Again, you have air circulation in our buildings. One air scrubber will cover 2 classrooms adjacent to each other.
What is going to happen with the new strain of COVID going around? Will we be out of school? And if so, how long?
Well, it is our hope that we are not out of school. And I would tell you, Superintendent, that is not where we are thinking at this time at all. We obviously believe in in-person instruction, and we believe that, again, that we're going to be able to manage the numbers. And, you know, we're at 142 cases right now. Almost every one of those cases can come back on Tuesday. And we'll see then what happens with those numbers moving forward. But again, you know, just as a, the Lake schools between the two had 13 reported cases in the first semester, and right now they have 33. And so the numbers inflated, obviously, and we've taken action up there. One school due to lack of staffing, and the other due to the number of kids that were either cases. There were significantly more that were quarantined, not cases, but were going to be required to miss school. And you look across all of our elementaries, I think the highest elementary right now is 10 cases at Zephyr. We have a couple with 9. Both our middle schools have around 12, 13 cases, and Douglas High School has around 42 cases. So while 145 seems, or 142 seems like a lot, spread across the number of schools that we have, we're actually doing quite well. The other thing on that, sometimes I'm not sure about our messaging. Obviously, when we made the decision to close at Zephyr Cove, one of the things that we have to ensure when we go to virtual learning is that every student has a device at home. And so obviously through that course, we just followed up with each of our sites and made sure that, you know, that we could be ready if we had to pivot, so that we're prepared. Unfortunately, when you start to prepare and you have discussions, then I think sometimes that message gets misconstrued that we're getting ready to close down the school district. And that's not the case. But again, it behooves us to make sure that we are ready should we have to. And so if your kids have come home in Valley schools and said that we are closing down, that is not the case. But discussions have occurred in classrooms about what they would do should that happen.
We don't have any questions at this time, so Jeannie and Wendy are going to sing a cappella Moon River.
So just Joe, the last comment is 42 in a student population of 16, a little over 1,600 is, you know, 2%. I mean, we are not in a position where we are thinking about closing down Douglas High School.
Is there any action that is going to be taken in regard to advanced class survey? Will there be additional options for honors advanced classes for middle schoolers?
Well, the survey that went out came out from the state of Nevada. And so I imagine that at some point Superintendent Lewis would receive the results of that survey. We have talked about some additional options at the middle school. We've not taken action only because there just hasn't seemed to be the need. Most teachers are able to differentiate in a way that allows students to have those accelerated options. We do have an accelerated option in math. And so at this time, we're not working on that, but that's not to say that wouldn't happen in the future. It just hasn't been deemed necessary to this point.
At this time, I have not been in receipt of any data yet from the states.
Do all Quad County school districts coordinate with the same epidemiologist to make outbreak determinations?
Yes.
Who are they?
The epidemiologists or the schools involved in the Quad County?
the epidemiologist.
So they're with a combination of Carson City Health and Human Services and the state Health and Human Services.
Next question.
I think they would be available on their website, Mr. Gardner.
Okay. The next question is, my child was in GT at Jacks Valley for many years ago and was extremely difficult for him when the hours were shortened for GT. More should be done to expand opportunity for GT kids. The next question.
Just a sec. Let's address that, because that we were just talking about that yesterday. And one of the problems that we've had is staffing and maintaining staffing. We're struggling across the nation with teachers, and finding GT teachers has been very challenging. And so we are looking at what can we do differently to provide GT services. And so Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown's going to smile here in a minute, because actually Ms. Dwyer and Ms. Jankowski are going to be overseeing our GT program. And we are going to try to look at it differently and how we, again, provide some services. So we do understand it's an issue. It's not at all that we don't believe in GT. It's just trying to find that right service delivery model that works best.
All right. Will the school county be having mandatory COVID-19 vaccines next year?
So at this point, I don't anticipate that vaccines are going to be mandatory. But of course, things could change. But we are not hearing that at this time.
So the next question is about the survey results for the school start time. We've covered that extensively early in the year. Is that something we want to address again? The question is,
what was that, Joe?
The question is, where did we land with the recent survey that was sent out regarding the 3 options for seasonal school start times?
So I think this is going back to, we will be, the survey came out that the desire was to align calendars and to keep the breaks the same. So we're going to be starting on August 22nd, and last day will be June 16th. And all breaks will remain the same that they are currently. October, February, 2 weeks at Christmas, and spring break 7 weeks after the February break.
And again, Brian Fraser posted in the chat that the data on this survey is posted on the school district website. It's attached to the December 14th Board of Trustees agenda. It's agenda item 13. All right, regarding ventilation, the in-person instruction plan implies that opening windows and doors is important as part of the multi-layered strategy. Should all classrooms that have windows open at least one when the room is in use, whether the weather and air quality permitting?
Well, I can't answer on what teachers do. I mean, obviously, as this says, weather, I think a lot of, well, I think that, it's a balance between air conditioning systems. Again, I think our, some things have been pointed out tonight that I think have been good, that we need to go in and update to make sure that it's clearly articulated. And again, I think the air scrubbers were purchased with the intent to improve air quality in relation to COVID.
Are you saying that air scrubbers are sufficient to mitigate COVID?
No, I am not saying air scrubbers alone are able to mitigate COVID. They are certainly an effective measure, or we wouldn't have invested the money to purchase them. Hand washing, mask wearing, for those that choose to do so. There are a lot of mitigation methods that work together. Dennis, I am not sure you want those two seen, really. Don't encourage them. We can't guarantee with Jeannie that it would even be appropriate to start off with.
If the person had asked about the technology for the weapon detection devices is still on there, the only thing I can find is they utilize electromagnetic technology. The extent of it and frequency, I don't know, but when we find something out, we will include it in any publicity we do. So we'll make sure we get something out or on our website.
Shannon, the follow-up question, will that be before constant use?
So our intention is to move them around to make sure the public knows and students know and visitors and community members that might come on our sites that they have the potential of being in use. And once we feel like we have them well publicized, they will be moved around at different sites on different days or for different events, whether it's a school dance. They're not going to be permanently put in one place for constant use all of the time. Is not the current plan for implementation.
And again, it's a deterrent, obviously, with the system that we would have a school resource officer whenever we implement them. And so obviously, you know, as you probably are aware, we have 3 school resource officers for the entire district. And so we wouldn't have the capacity to have them, but again, it's more of a deterrent and, you know, to move them around. And, you know, obviously if they're in place and you see someone come up to them and suddenly do a quick U-turn, it might draw some suspicion as to why they U-turned away from them. But again, it's more a deterrent. We won't be able to do every door in every campus, but we will move them around.
Okay, the next question in regards to the duties that the principal and vice principal share at the lake schools, would it be accurate to assume that both those admins should for the most part be in the same place at the same time, assuming they are sharing these duties?
I'm sorry, Joe, for clarification, not in the same place at the same time is how the question was written.
Not me. Okay, I apologize. Thank you, Rami.
Yeah. Would you like me to take this, Superintendent Lewis? Yeah.
Sure.
So we have asked the administration up there to create a schedule that allows them to rotate between the schools. Obviously, for the purpose of planning and working together, they occasionally do need to be together, but they do, when we have both up there, divide up that time with the inclusion of the dean, Mr. Phil Bryant. And so the schools typically have an administrator who's moving between those buildings, and they're not together most of the time. They do separate so that they can cover both schools.
It sounds like DCSD's approach to COVID mitigation is primarily voluntary. If schools can mandate and enforce detailed dress codes, why is it not mandatory? Why is it not mandating and enforcing mitigation measures during this pandemic for safety and avoidance of disruption to education?
Once again, we have followed the directives of the state from the outset. There is an assumption that everyone agrees with every measure. And if you sit in my seat, you would clearly understand real quickly that there are a lot of people who want masks. There are a lot of people who don't want masks. There are people who want everyone vaccinated. There are people who don't want anyone vaccinated. And again, Douglas County has remained in line with the guidance from day one, and that's where we still lay. And so we are not going to, at this point, mandate masks outside an outbreak determination. So I'm not sure the multiple, was that in response to something else?
I think Mr. Gardner missed a question. My children have turned in multiple assignments late with no consequence. How is this teaching them to be accountable and responsible? I can take this. I don't know what grade level you're referring to, but it depends obviously on the assignment and the teacher, but it is our intent to focus heavily on what our students are able to demonstrate that they're learning, not so much exactly when they turn in a project or an assignment. So it depends on each grade level, and we're working right now with a committee of parents and teachers and board members to tighten up some of our grading expectations as a district. But this is a common conversation. And one of the things that teachers have said loud and clear is that not every assignment needs to be held accountable for a timeline, because it's more about the quality of the work and demonstrating that students have understanding of the content being taught as opposed to actually turning it in on a specific time. So if that's what's happening, I probably think if you had that conversation with those teachers, that's what they would tell you, is that it's not always about when the work is turned in, but rather more about the quality of the work and whether or not students are able to demonstrate that they've learned the content and are ready to move on to the next idea or concept.
So there's a question, how can I be part of this parent committee? I'm assuming it's a grading committee. Can you clarify that for us, Corey?
I'm sure that's what she's talking about. Yes. So the grading committee is a subcommittee of the Board of Trustees. So it does meet generally the first Tuesday of every month. It is a public meeting. And so those agendas are posted on our DCSD website under our meetings. And so you're always welcome to come and attend. I do have members that were recommended, parent members that were recommended or selected by different school sites. We have parents from different levels, but it is a public meeting and we would welcome your attendance.
So there's another question. If a student needs to switch to DNO during this outbreak due to medical reasons, will that student be unable to re-enroll in their original school when they are able to return to in-person instruction?
Oh, I love these answers when I have to say it depends, but it depends on what grade level. And part of that has to do with how credits are earned at the secondary level versus the elementary level. So, if you're talking about students who are in 6th through 12th grade, if they transition now to Douglas, Nevada online, it's in their best interest to fulfill that commitment for the semester. Elementary kids, it's a little bit different. And so I would encourage you, if you have an elementary child that you're concerned about, that
Probably this is a middle school.
Oh, middle school? Sorry. Okay.
She or he, I shouldn't assume.
Yeah, middle school can certainly make that that decision to enroll in Douglas, Nevada online, but it would be a semester commitment because of the requirement that students have to earn certain numbers of credits to move on from middle school to high school. And so it's very difficult to move between an in-person environment and back and forth to an online environment for those grades to transfer.
Is the parent in classroom volunteer option suspended for the entirety of the year?
It has not been suspended at this time. So we are still allowing parent volunteers on campus. Obviously, we're still allowing spectators at our events at this time. All right, we'll give it a few more seconds. We may have exhausted the questions.
All right.
Fun topic. I can't wait for this.
How about a fun topics? How about a fun topic? Any thoughts on having a parade for graduation?
So you know what's sad is we thought for sure last year when we gave the survey that the kids would want a parade, and they highly disappointed us. They voted it down. So I have a senior son who really would like a parade, but dad's not going to make a decision just for his son, I promise you. So I don't know. Obviously, a lot goes into that. And again, I was a little bit shocked that they voted it down. We thought for sure we'd have a parade. Because it was fun. I had a daughter that was a senior the year we did the parade.
If new emergency directive arise as a result of this outbreak that expand mandatory COVID mitigation measures in schools, is it DCSD's intention to continue to advocate for local control?
So we will advocate for local control, but if the governor puts out a directive, it will not be with local control. So I think that those two don't go together. So that if the governor does give out a directive, it's obviously going to change the guidance, and it will change what we're required to do. Our intent would be to implement that guidance. So hopefully that makes sense. They're not going to mandate something on us and then at the same time give us local control.
Thank you for keeping our schools open with basically normal lives for our children. We love being in person in normal school, no mask. Next, thank you for that comment. Next question: do these dates that the lake schools have missed this week due to COVID and now snow need to be made up?
We always have contingency days at the end of each of the calendars. So it's see the schools, and roughly on a Thursday this year. So the 3 subsequent school days then are always there for makeup for any reason, whether it's you're saying COVID or snow.
Dennis is advocating for parades for parents and families, I think.
Yeah, now going back to the survey results were supposed to be in collaboration with parents. So, so maybe the parents actually voted it down.
Dennis gets the humor award for the night. He said, yeah, who cares what kids want? LOL.
Dennis, you might own a car that your kid is embarrassed of too. That's a factor. Or you might own the best car ever that they want to be in. Those were all factors, those things that you don't always think about. I could tell you when I was a high school senior, I would have been embarrassed to be in a parade in our Dodge Dart that was gold. But for my daughters, we packed 12 in a minivan.
So Emergency Directive 48 granted local control to the rural counties of population under 100,000 at the request of those school superintendents, correct?
It gave us local control of everything, but we don't have local control over masks for adults. So we don't have complete local control.
Not clear on that. Will the lake schools need to make up these 3 days that we have missed due to COVID?
That is still to be determined. But there's probably likely going to be some makeup that has to occur. We're on 10, I think at Zephyr Cove, we've missed 10 days. The virtual days do count as instructional days, so those will not be considered missed school days. There's a lot of things that also occur behind the scenes on this too. So we're not trying to be a avoidance, but we have to go through the state for approvals, and they look at instructional minutes and so forth.
All right, Dennis says embarrassment is what makes being a parent fun.
Chris, are you going to do that? Okay, I was going to say,
sorry.
That's okay.
Understood, and kudos to teachers at Zephyr Cove Elementary, especially the kinders, for the last minute virtual learning attempt. They have tried really hard. Thank you, Zephyr Cove Elementary teachers.
That would probably just be fun to watch.
Are there plans to increase enforcement of social distancing, ventilation, etc. in the Valley schools now and avoid what happened this week at the lake schools?
I really don't know how to answer this question any other way. We are continuing to implement our plan. Our cases are manageable, and we feel good about our ability to keep our schools open moving forward. All right, so I want to thank you all. Thank my staff for staying here late with me this evening. Some of you look like you're in your homes, while others of us look like we're still at work. We won't point out that Jeannie's blinds aren't the same blinds that we have here at work. Anyways, Dennis, you're right. If we had two more, we could do the Brady Bunch. I would be Bobby. He was my favorite character. Actually, I really liked when the cousin visited. Oliver, wasn't that his name? So anyways, we digress. Dennis is the person that gets us off task. So again, I thank you for your questions. I thank you for your concerns. As always, you can always reach out to us. If you have questions, you don't have to wait for a town hall meeting. Most of us are readily available and accessible to answer questions. So have a wonderful night. We have Friday tomorrow, and then have a wonderful 3-day weekend as well. Thank you.